Hi everybody and welcome to Omaha 8 or better winning at high-low poker. And what we're going to be looking at today is how to play the river. In particular, three key questions we're going to look at. How do I maximise my value on my strong hands? When should I bluff? And how strong a hand do I need to call a bet? And we're going to be looking at a few hands which I played recently on PokerStars. As a reminder, I'm Iggy Pop 77. And we're playing limit Omaha 8 at the level 50 cents, $1. So let's look at the first of our three hands. There's a raise in front of me. I'm second to act on the 5-player table at the moment. Apocalypse raises. Now I've got a good hand here, ace 2, 5, 10, but it's not great. The ace is not suited. The 5 gives me some low protection, but it's not the best. And there's a raise in front of me. I also, with a hand like ace 2, 5, 10, I don't necessarily want it heads up. I probably want a multi-way pot so that if I hit the nut low, I'd like a lot of people chasing the high. So I elect to call, and we get 4 of a seed of flop. Flop comes down, 3, king, 8. So I've got the nut low draw. I've got some counterfeit protection. I've got a very weak flush draw, which I don't think is going to add a lot of equity, or in fact could get me into trouble. But it's something. Now after the natural bet from Apocalypse, I elect to call. I could consider raising, but again, if I'm chasing the low, I probably want to keep other people in, to be honest. I suppose it would be good if I could make a higher flush draw fold. That would be one consideration. But I think I'd rather keep the pot multi-way. So 4 of us see the turn. It's a blank, a jack of clubs. And gives me a straight draw with a queen to go with my weak flush draw. And after the bet from Apocalypse again, I don't think I'm strong enough to raise here, so I call with 2 people behind me. And just Tim comes along, so I've got 3 of us now. And on the river I hit the 7 of hearts. So I've got the nut low, and I've got no high. There's a bet from Apocalypse. Question now, to call or to raise? Well, the advantages of raising would be if both my opponents are going for high, I can build a bigger pot and take half of it. If I had any sort of decent high hand, I could knock out a slightly better high hand, but I don't. I've only got ace high. I can't see Apocalypse folding. So on balance here, I think it's better to call and hope that we keep Tim in. And also hope that I'm not quartered, of course. So I call, Tim folds, turn it over. Okay, now I'm up against aces and a better flush draw, which shows the dangers of low flush draws. We take half each. So I think it was a fairly clear call on the river there. Now let's look at our next hand. Same table, a few hands in. I've got a nice hand here, ace 3, 4, 10, 2 Broadway cards, 3 low cards, suited ace. I've talked previously about when to raise first in and when to limp first in. In limit 08, I actually quite like limping in early position, which I know is odd to Hold'em players. But hand values run so close in limit that I really want to neutralise the value of being out of position. And sometimes if I've got a hand with nut potential, I'm happy to build a multi-way pot. Here though, on the cutoff, I tend to raise in late position because I'm that much closer to winning the blinds. I really want to knock the button out, and here obliges and folds. So 2 of us see the flop, heads up, king 8, 10. Okay, that's missed me, but after a check, I think the obligatory bet really. I call, and thinking about what this call might mean. I'm guessing then this is going to mean that he's aiming high. He's perhaps got a flush draw, straight draw, 2 pair maybe. And the ace gives me 2 pair. And after a check, and also a decent low draw, so I naturally bet again. And there's a call. And the river is a jack, so my low draw hasn't come in. Plenty of straight potential here. And after the check from Schmalski, question is, am I going to bet? Now I elect to check because my view is what hands which are weaker than mine could call a bet here. I don't think many could. Plenty of weak straights out there, or maybe a better two pair. Ace King or Ace Jack, which I think would check call here. So I'm happy just to check it back, and we turn the cards over. Pretty surprised by Szymanski's hand there. He called pre-flop with 7-5 King 7. I really don't like that call. It's a really bad starting hand. Then he called with top pair and a weak flush draw on the flop, perhaps. By the turn, he can't like that ace much, I wouldn't have thought. I think the turn might be the case to give up, really. So I think he set himself up to lose some money there by playing that hand. Okay. Now we look at our third hand, and there's a raise on the button. A call from the small blind. I've got a great hand here. I've got really good low potential, ace 2, 3, 6, and I've got the suited ace, which means I've got high potential as well. So I don't normally like re-raising in the blinds, but with this hand, it's good enough. My opponent's call. Note we're playing four-handed at the moment, so probably can't read too much strength into Tim's raise pre-flop. But perhaps he had some sort of low draw, or maybe some Broadway cards, etc. Okay, I've hit trip twos. That's the good news. I haven't got much else. Back draw, not low draw. But again, I feel it's almost a obligatory bet there, really, with my trips. And I get raised now by Tim. So what are we assuming his raise means? I would have thought he's also got trips. Perhaps ace 2 himself would be consistent with this pre-flop raise. Or maybe he's got a flush draw. Maybe he's got, worst of all for me, if he's got a set of queens and a full house, I'm in quite a bit of trouble. So I don't think I can re-raise here, but I like to call. Obviously the turn's a good card for me, the 5. So I've now got the nut low draw to go with my trips. I'm not folding, but equally after his raise on the flop, I don't really want to put more money than I need to, so I check call. And 6, what a great card on the river. I've hit my nut low, and I've also got the full house, 2's full of 6s. So I'm clearly doing well here now, but the key question is, should I bet or should I check raise? Reasons for check raising. I need Tim to bet and call over half the time here if I check to him, and if he does, and then my check raise and I get an extra bet in the pot, I'm doing well. If I think he's going to check it down over half the time, then I'm better off betting now and getting the money in. Now, thinking about his range that we've put him on, we think it's quite likely he had a 2 in his hand, an ace 2. He could have had a set of queens, in which case he's got a better full house than me. Difficult to read him for an ace 3 like me, so I'm pretty sure I'm ahead. In retrospect, looks likely he's probably going to keep betting, unless he's got a set of 2s, no low, and he's afraid perhaps of the flush. If that's the case, perhaps he'll check it down. But I think a bet feels more likely than not from him if I check. I actually choose to bet myself. Tim calls. We turn it over. Okay, and we see that Tim indeed had ace 2. He had a set of 2, trip 2s, an ace 4 for a decent low. So I win the pot here. I scoop, which is very nice. But being greedy, actually, if I'd known his hand, critical thing being he had a decent low, ace 4 as well as his trip 2s. If I'd known his hand, I think I would have check raised there on the river and expected to get an extra bet. So let's look at one last hand before we finish. And this is a hand a bit towards the end of the session. And by this stage, I've got quite a lot of reads on my opponents. And Tanya Tank is playing very aggressively, raising a lot of hands. So I don't give too much credence to her raise. I've got a marginal hand, let's be fair. I'm in the small blind. I've got a suited ace and an ace 4, a Broadway. But it's a bit iffy. But I'm not respecting Tanya's raises necessarily, I decided to keep playing. I could even have raised there, I think. Trying to get it heads up. We'll get a flop. Jack 3-10. After Tanya's bet, well, I've got top pair. We know top pairs are not worth much in 08. I do have a back draw, low draw. The pot is $3.50. It's only 50 to call, so I decided to keep going. 3 was see the turn. I really don't like the turn. That puts straights on the board. It means there's no low possible. So I'm going to give up now. But Tanya decides to check it back. So after checking it back, that implies to us she's got a pretty weak hand. She's probably going with a low hand. I think she'd be betting a flush draw. She'd certainly be betting a straight. She'd be trying to protect the set. So we assume she's come in with a weak low hand and has missed her hand. And the river's in between card. I've made top two pair now, and it does put a flush on the board. So again, I don't really like this, but after a check and a bet from Tanya, I don't think I really believe Tanya's hand. What's she representing here? Well, perhaps she had aces pre-flop. That might be a small part of her range. But even if she had aces, would you not be worried by the flush or by the straight? I don't think her bet is very credible. And there's $5.50 in the pot. It's only $1 for me to call. I don't feel I'm really strong enough to raise here with my two pair. But I'm not going to go away either, so I call, and Quare overcalls. And let's turn them over. So Tanya had ace-3, two pair on the river. Quare had ace-jack, same as me, two pair on the river, top two pair. So Quare and I are going to share the pot. And what do we think about Tanya's bet on the river? Well, you have to ask why she did that with a weak two pair. I mean, she's got some showdown value if she just shows it down, but it's pretty hard to see how a worse hand could call that bet. She's turned a weak showdown hand into a bluff, and the bluff's been picked off because the odds were good for me to call. Quare's cool, overcall, perhaps a little bit marginal, but hey, he won half the pot. So I think we take from that, be careful about your river bets. Let's put all that together now then and think about what have we learned today. Our 3 questions: how do I maximise my value? I'm a strong hand. When should I bluff? How strong a hand do I need to call a bet? Well, firstly, thinking about your bluffs. Bluffs need to be credible, and we've just seen a hand from Tanya there, which the bluff wasn't credible. It got picked off. We also saw a hand there where in limit poker you get good odds to call the river. It's only one bet into often a pot of 5 or 6 times that, maybe more. So you don't need to be right that often to make the right equity call. And what we saw in the early hands, it was all about pushing the edges. And if you have a strong hand, you should push it. If you've got a marginal hand, you may be better checking it down. So I hope that's helpful. Been enjoyable as always, and I look forward to seeing you on the tables. Reminder, if you want to look at my book, it's available on Amazon. Omaha 8 or Better, Winning at High-Low Poker. Cheers.